Hi guys, welcome to my second video, and today it's a very wintry cold day in Melbourne, so perfect time to sit down and play with my art. So here we go. So here's what I'm using today. I've got my little journal, I've got my Crafters Workshop 6x6 little stencils, I've got some washi tape, I've got the Atelier Free Flow acrylic paints, which I love. I've got some pens, pencil, Posca pens, brushes. Now today the quote that I'm using I got from the Daily Om, which I subscribe to, and I just liked the title, Being a Strong Container. It talks about being grounded, how you stay grounded in the busy life that we have now. So that's what I thought I'd base the page around. So let's see how we go. Alright, so the little techniques that I thought I'd have a play with today are resist techniques. And the first layer that I would like to do is using a white Posca pen. This is the medium size, I don't know what size that is. 0.9 to 1.3 bullet point. I get these from my local Office Works. So all I'm going to do is make sure that it's coming out of the nib. And then I'm just going to do random doodles. Can't see it much now, but what I'm hoping is that when you put a layer of paint over the top, this will show through and just give another layer of texture. I might go on a double page today, so see that. And then what we'll do is we'll use the Free Flow Cad Yellow Light. I love these paints because you can play with them like watercolours. They're very strong acrylics, the pigmentation is strong. As you can see, my palette, I don't buy an expensive palette, so I just use my milk container and cut it up because I go through so many. So I'm just putting some water on my brush. I'm going to have it quite inky, and I'm just going to a bit more water, float it around. I don't want it to cover the whole page. I'm actually going to pick up some quinacridone magenta. This is one of my favourite colours. It's so bright and vivid. Mixes beautifully with the yellow, beautiful orange. You can make it really nice and pale or quite bright. They do blend together beautifully, these paints, when they go through. As you can probably hear, I've got the heater on because it's so cold, so they might dry a bit quick today, but I love the randomness. Just quickly putting a colour on a page without thinking too hard about it. Remembering that I think the secret to art journaling, my style of art journaling, or how I art journal, is many layers. Gives the interest in the page. So this is just one layer. Brush. As you can see, I don't know if you can see that. You can see that the white of the Posca pen is showing through. And I smudge that a little bit. I don't want those harsh lines. I I like the softness. The brilliance of these paints is just beautiful. I just love it. So my next layer is going to be, I just realised I forgot to get it. Going to be some gel medium. So this is the Atelier regular gel gloss. I actually use it as a glue, as a sealer. It gives great texture. So I'm just going to randomly, a little bit on my card, and just scrape it. I'm not going to do the whole stencil. I'm just going to do random sections of it. I'm not worried about whether I half get a circle or half not. And make sure that it goes over both pages. I don't want it too thick because that will take ages to dry. But I do want it, see how I've got it not just in the yellow or the pink, I've actually got it going over both. Some areas are a bit thicker than others. So this will give a nice clear layer of resist. The underlayer will shine through, whereas if you used a gesso or a texture paste, that would actually be a solid white. So I'll just dry it off now and we'll come back in a minute when it's dry. So I'm just drying with my heat gun. I will fast forward through this because I'm sure the knives will be terrible. But the tip that I would give for this is keep moving the heat gun around when it's dry, when you're drying. Otherwise it'll bubble and crack. Of course, if you want the gel medium to bubble, then concentrate it, which I'll show you in another video how we do that with gesso, which is quite a nice effect. But we just want this a nice glossy, I want this to come out a nice glossy even coverage of the layer underneath where I've stenciled the gel medium. So I just keep moving it around like that. Don't let it get too hot, don't let it bubble. You don't want to burn the paper either, so I'll do that and then we'll come back when it's dry. Right, so you can see that when I first put the gel medium on, where I stenciled it onto the paper, it was actually quite a milky, opaque colour. As it dries, it goes clear. So if I hold it up, I'll try and get it up to the light so you can see where it's shimmering. So we've got all that lovely clear texture layer on the page. So what I'm going to do now is a wash of paint. Now what I'm going to do, I think I really want to use this phthalo blue. And that will mix well with the quinacridone magenta. It's not going to give us mud, it'll give us a nice violet colour. So let's start with the blue. And we'll just make that a nice inky blue. Hopefully, fingers crossed, beautiful clear colours that you get from this free flow paint. I do just love it. So what I'm going to do, I've got a damp, I've just dabbed my wet brush on the paper towel. What I'm going to use is that water on the paper towel to actually just gently rub over where I've stenciled. And I hope that you can see it, but I'll show you close up in a minute. Is that paint on top of the gel medium is coming off, and what you're left with is the stencil shape underneath. So look at that for a lovely layer. So you can see with each layer in art journaling, you're adding interest, you're adding depth to your page, and for me that's the whole beauty of an art journal page. Any painting really, but I'm talking about art journaling now. But if you can, I love looking at my art journal pages, and even if I look at them a year later, I look back and I find something that I didn't see, and a little section of the page that I didn't see. Interest, I like adding interest to the page, where people look at it and go, oh, it's like looking through a window into another world. So I'll just give this a little burst of heat gun. So that layer's touch dry now. I think what I'm going to do now is use my, do I use that now or do I use it later? I might use it now. The Zinnia stencil. And I have a little makeup sponge, which I'm going to use to sponge the paint. I've got Atelier Free Flow Titanium White. A little bit of that out on the palette. Now when I'm sponging through a stencil like this, I don't just dab into there and then start sponging through here, because as you can see you've got great big dollop of paint on there. I actually want to pull it out away from the puddle of paint so that you can see there's a layer of paint on the sponge, but it's not too thick. What happens if it's too thick? It actually pushes underneath the stencil and you won't get the pattern. You'll just lift it up and it will all be just sponged with no real definition. So I'm not going to go into exactly the clear space. I'm actually going to try and go into a space that hasn't been stenciled already and a bit that has. So for me, when bringing together an art journal page is actually, the way that I do that is actually to overlap the elements in each layer. So I'd like to come up here and I just push and roll off the stencil. When you roll off, when you use that action of rolling off the stencil with the paint doesn't, and the sponge doesn't stick to the stencil and lift it up, because that way the paint will go underneath the stencil. This actually helps keep the stencil in place. I'll just load up with a bit more paint. I think I want to go here. I'm varying the amounts of the stencil that's actually on the page. I don't want a thick opaque coverage, and I haven't got all the same. So there's some areas here I've hardly got any white, some are stronger white. So I really love the variation. In the middle. Sorry if my hand's in the way. Now I haven't gone right around the stencil, but I've got the suggestion that the shape is there. When I add elements to my page, I'm always thinking of odd numbers, so I'll add 3, 5, 7, 9 stencil areas or pieces of collaged paper. I just like the odd numbers. I always find that if somebody puts an even number in there, you're always trying to see if it's symmetrical. I'll just dry that off and I'll be back in a minute. So this is all nice and dry now. We're just about finished. So what I thought I'd do is do some writing. I just picked out, I read the article from Daily Ohm and I just wrote down words that came to me that reminded me to keep grounded in my daily life and how important it is to be grounded. So I'm going to use my thin black Posca pen. This is a 0.7mm, and I'm just going to write the words that I've chosen. So container. Now I think we need a little bit of black somewhere else. I like the black text to stand out, but I actually want to pull it into the page a little bit more. I also want to frame the page, so I think I'll frame it with this beautiful cobalt turquoise light. Probably is my favourite colour, although all these colours I've used today have got to be up there with my favourite. So I'm just a little bit on my palette, and I'm just going to put a little bit on my finger, and I'm just going to rub it around the outside, just lightly, not great big blobs. This is just going to frame the page and focus our attention inside the boundaries of the page. Choose these colours, I actually want them to be inside the page as well as the outside, but I'm not going to put a lot in there, it just pulls all the page together. So once I've done that, I'm actually going to just do a scribbly little line, rough, framing the page, bringing black into somewhere else into the page other than just the text, but it's not overtaking the text. So it's all about cohesion, really. I want the text to be a focal point, but I want it to all look as if it's supposed to be there. Part of my grounding practice is meditation. Part of it is having the candles burning. Candles really ground me. But meditation and just quiet reflection, my art journaling is a huge, huge part of being grounded. And can instantly ground me. If I feel lost or a bit out of sorts, if I sit down and art journal, I'm instantly grounded. So, you know, you could keep fiddling with this and filling there. I've got a little silver pen. I'm just going to bring out these. Where I think that I want the letters to stand out a little bit more. So, I think that's probably enough. So as you can see, you've got all these lovely layers. You've got the layers in, this is your first layer with the white Posca pen that you can see in the background. There's little circles there that I've drawn. Then the layer of the gel medium. You can see where I've stenciled that. And then the layer with the sponging of the white paint. So I hope I've inspired you to try something different. Let me know if there's any other techniques that you'd like to try, and I'll have a go for you. See you soon.